Module 5, Drugs and Alcohol, written by Dr. George Tanis, and narrated by Lydia. Important. Before you study this lesson, please watch this video. Why? Example. If you or your client are in a relationship, and the other person displayed an attitude of not being truthful, you'll need to master, and you'll need to educate your client the following. Confront and level. Assertive communications. As well as I feel good, PST positive self-talk. Make sure to answer the questions at the end and follow the instructions for submission. One of the major challenges societies have is the struggle with drugs and alcohol. Millions of people around the globe abuse prescription drugs, indulge in drinking alcohol, and inject drugs into their systems in order to feel high. Even though people are aware of the possible consequences, they ignore them. While some start out casually, most slip down the path of self-destruction. Why people do drugs? There are many reasons people start using drugs. Some people get into drugs out of curiosity, while others get involved due to peer pressure. They believe they'll just try it one time to see how it feels, and that will be it. There will be no consequences and they'll just walk away. What many don't realize is many drugs start doing harm from the very first use. Some people use drugs to escape reality. The stressful lifestyle, a big workload, financial stress, life events eventually push people to indulge in drinking, smoking, or doing drugs. When stress increases, people start looking for stronger stuff to help them relieve it. Some people don't really want to try drugs, but they do it to fit in. A toxic set of friends and hanging out with people who are abusing prescription pills often drive them to do drugs. People eventually end up trying drugs to seem cool or just to fit in a group. Young adults who find it difficult to make new friends, teenagers often end up giving in to peer pressure and doing drugs. And remember, alcohol is a drug. Why can't drug abusers stop? We may wonder, why can't drug abusers or addicts just stop? Why is it so difficult for them? Are they just making excuses to keep using drugs? The truth is, people who abuse drugs or become addicts cannot stop. It's difficult for people to recover completely from their drug use and stay clean. In some cases, addicts require professional help. Everyone, even drug abusers, are aware of the consequences of snorting, drinking, or injecting drugs. But they still continue to keep seeking and using drugs. Why? When a person takes drugs for the first time, it makes him high, it makes him feel a bit dizzy or makes him feel good. After the high state comes to an end, the person starts fantasizing about it and eventually starts seeking more drugs to achieve that state again. As time progresses, they become used to drinking, smoking, injecting, or snorting something. They start looking for more. Soon, feeling normal without using drugs becomes challenging, which pushes them to seek more drugs. Drugs stimulate the reward system of the brain, and the person taking drugs becomes used to the elevated levels of dopamine. Since the brain is incapable of producing large amounts of dopamine on its own, the person gets pushed to use the drugs again. As the tolerance level of the person increases, he starts injecting or inhaling drugs in larger amounts, and soon starts looking for stronger drugs that can cause the intense effects. As time progresses, the person becomes tangled in his own desires and finds himself powerless. Without drugs, he feels helpless. The consequences of using drugs. There is no doubt that drugs, including alcohol, are destructive. They harm a person in several ways. Diverse aspects of life are affected when a person chooses to go down this road. One of the aspects that is affected is physical and mental health. Most drug abusers suffer from multiple mental and physical disorders that include short-term and long-term illnesses. Some drugs cause permanent disabilities and can result in death. Other aspects where drugs and alcohol can take a toll are finances, work, and relationships. People who acquire the taste for drugs often spend blindly and drain their savings. As they get pushed toward addiction, everything else stops mattering, and they spend recklessly to acquire drugs and alcohol. Many people get fired from their jobs because of drugs, while for others, drugs lead to a bad reputation or temporary suspension from work. Some abusers end up alienating themselves because of regret and shame of being an addict. Only a few family members and friends choose to stick around and put up with the tantrums, the never-ending demands, and the abuse. After time, when things don't change, even they leave. Drug addicts manipulate, lie, deceive, and sometimes even threaten their loved ones for money to acquire drugs, and that in turn causes permanent damage to their relationships. If alcohol and drugs bring so much misery to a person, wouldn't it be better to consider changing for good? Breaking the habit for good. It's true that drug addicts spend a lot of time contemplating and regretting their actions. The lost years, the irresponsible spending, the wasted time and resources, the health issues, broken relationships, and unfulfilled goals. They carry the guilt inside. But when a person decides to take steps towards betterment, when he chooses to leave the toxic world of drugs and alcohol, he not only changes his life, but also brings a positive change to the lives of his loved ones as well. When a person chooses a life free from drugs, he gives himself a second chance. A second chance to be a better person, a better spouse, a better parent, a better friend, and a better employee. Drug addicts can change their ways, they can repair their relationships, they can still pursue their goals and create new ones, they can turn around their health, and they can still fulfill their dreams. They can still have a family, a good job, a better financial situation, and a good life. It takes time, but with discipline, dedication, and willpower, drug abusers and addicts can turn their life around and say goodbye to drugs forever. Do you know someone who used to be an addict? How did they quit and what steps did they take to change their lives? Were they able to find their why to walk away from drugs? What was the reason they chose a drug-free life? The essay. Please write an essay, up to 2 pages, about a past experience you or someone you know was hooked on drugs or alcohol. Tell us in detail, who, what, when, where, why, to whom, the place of what you did, the outcome. And tell us in detail how you could have changed that use from what you learned today, so the outcome would have been good. Internalize this lesson. Make it become a part of you. Share your story in the forums. Our advice is for you to seek help if you're addicted to drugs or alcohol. Tell others around you to point out any time in which you didn't. Have them hold you accountable. Visit the forum and do a confession. What is a confession? A confession is when you've displayed a wrong behavior and were held accountable by one of your family members, peers, or even yourself. Visit the forum and tell us about it. We will give you feedback. Make sure to watch the video about confession for more details. Furthermore, become a member of the forum and give feedback to others. Read the article? Time to introspect. What was your reason for using drugs and alcohol? What pushed you? Why do you think so many addicts are unable to say no to drugs and alcohol? What short-term or long-term illnesses did you develop because of drugs or alcohol? Have you recovered completely? Did you also end up pushing your loved ones away? Why? Do you carry guilt inside? Why do you think you are unable to let go of it? There is no way any relationship will survive without having the qualities mentioned above. Make sure to read each article carefully at least 3 times. Print your workbook, will be available per lesson. Answer all questions and enter them in your workbook. Once you have completed this entire journey, you will be issued a life coach certificate, so long as you've been a member of the forums. Also, follow the instruction for sharing your story in our forums, as well as participating in our forums, especially our unique confessions forum, so you may gain practice, knowledge, experience, and expertise. I am thankful that you have given me this opportunity to share all of this with you. May God bless you and bring prosperity and peace into your life. Respectfully yours, George Tanis, Ph.D.